Okay, so I think that's it. Let's move on to the next change, which are the PV adjustments, where they apparently have nerfed AI on tiers 1, 2, 3. And what are your feelings about that if you have played on those tiers?
Well, to be honest, they're still really bad, like compared to a player. I'm not sure how a new player would perceive them, to be honest. So I can't talk from that perspective. But like I would say, as a seasoned player, it's still like a clown fiesta. The AI is pretty much like I guess it's stupid. You have to actually use the word stupid there. They don't walk out of fire. They don't care about stakes, really. They don't care about caltrops that much. It's like you can exploit them really easily. But in a one-on-one fight, it's still like a little bit of strategy just obliterates them.
Anyone
I guess
else?
for new players, it's easier, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I think for new players, it's a reasonable positive change. I think because we all know how long like tiers 1 to 3 take. It's not very many battles. You're down at that sort of level if you just play one unit. That is, and I feel that units that when they don't run out of this fire and stuff necessarily, obviously to us it doesn't make a lot of sense if we're playing against them as players, obviously. But I think for new players, just sort of it even teaches you how to use your abilities, if that makes any sense.
Actually, you're right.
I think that if you're playing like a Vercingetorix, you're learning him, and you want to throw down this fire, you want to see what it does, you want to see how much damage it can deal, what its potential is. You throw it down on this AI unit, and you can see the damage, you can see the potential that this ability has. You know what its capabilities are now, and so when you start playing against players, you understand the value of that ability after seeing what it's capable of, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that is true, actually, yeah.
Astolfo, Shlomi, your thoughts?
I think it's kind of a disservice to players a little bit because, yes, it makes their entry into the game easier and you want more people into the game. But, when you have an easier AI and that sets a bar of difficulty and that's what they expect, and then they go against players who, some of us have been playing since pre-alpha Steam. Just on a whim, I could be down on tier 5, grinding up, I don't know, what an off unit I don't usually play, like Roman Javelins. And someone who's coming into that situation is going to feel completely powerless. I get that, playtime and experience should be rewarded, but also I think either a more robust tutorial or the AI to really give them a trial by fire would be a good thing, especially because you can play in that low ping training ground with AI because there's less people connected, and it's obviously less punishing. You don't have another team, winning against you.
And Shlomi, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think what's kind of curious, the AI actually does a kind of good job when it comes to a macro game. So you see a lot of games where even seasoned players start off losing points and then get it back. That's because, as the other said, the AI is just too bad when it comes to actually fighting, using their advantages and getting out of bad situations. So if they fix the micro AI a bit and tone down the macro to not make it frustrating for players who just run into 4 AI players 30 seconds into the game, I think that would be a good change. But then again, it's grinding to 3, 4, 5, and well, off you are, no?
Okay, so my thoughts to address, for example, what Shlomi said about the micro game. Yes, AI is actually very good in that regard because, well, it's actually not very hard. All they do is just attack and they don't camp. So that already provides pressure across the map, and that is really good. So that's essentially something that players should learn from AI. And also about learning from AI, that is a very difficult argument, and you actually present arguments for both sides of the conflict here. Because either you make AI really good, as it was in the previous test, and then players, they can actually learn stuff from AI. It's like, okay, AI did something like this in this situation, and that was a really good move because, well, AI won this engagement because of that. Maybe I should pick that up from the AI and start doing it myself, right? So you can have that argument, but then if AI is too good, it will continuously win against players, especially since they're the beginner players. And like we've seen beginning players struggling with AI really hard, as also Shlomi pointed out. It usually, because of our veteran presence, AI was crashing at the beginning, but then thanks to our experience, we slowly managed to carry the game back in most cases. So yeah, for us, it wasn't really an issue, and the players around us had some veteran players to carry them. But if there are no veterans present, right, they may just get crushed, and if they're losing against AI, that may really lower their morale, and essentially as they're beginning players, the first few battles may very well decide whether or not they will continue playing the game or just drop it and say it's not for them. So you usually would like to give them a few easy wins at the beginning to make them feel confident, make them feel like, oh, this game's so cool, haha, I'm having fun, because, well, no one really is having fun if they're getting crushed. And usually people tend to have fun if they feel more powerful, which is easier to feel more powerful against weaker AI. But also what I've seen in terms of AI that changed compared to the previous test, first of all, I've actually noticed the change across all tiers, not just different AI in tiers 1 to 3 and then better AI or AI as it used to be in the higher tiers. So I felt a change across the board. Maybe it was just a coincidence that I haven't noticed that previously. But there were a lot of situations where AI just literally stopped working. When their units got small, they just stopped moving at all. So that's kind of a bug. But for example, I was capping a zone with cavalry. There were 2-3 units of infantry very close to the capture point, and they just would stand there and look at me. Maybe they thought, oh, too big of a threat, I cannot get close, but I'm capping your point, come and stop me, right? So AI kind of just, well, they literally stood there in place and were just looking at me until I do something. So yes, that was an issue that AI maybe have been damped down too much. And apart from the abuses, right, like we've discovered a few ways to abuse the AI because AI, well, just being stupid maybe, or maybe just being buggy, or just not polished well enough. But let's say that's a separate issue that doesn't come up too often, and well, it's after all just AI, right? Anyway, Foxy?
I actually like that the AI sometimes doesn't really work because it feels more human. If you're like a normal and you have like 3 units across the map and they're like in totally different places, you only have focus on one unit, so you don't know what's going on like with the second one. So maybe you encounter a player at a flag or at a watchtower that's literally just like AFK in quotation marks because he's concentrated on a battle on the other side of the map, so you can just like take advantage of it. So I like that the AI sometimes works out like that. But yeah.
True, that's a good argument. And I remember when some of you were talking earlier, I think it was George, that, yeah, it kind of feels, I mean, like the change between when you start playing against AI and then start playing against players. Maybe that was a Astolfo. Yeah, from what I've noticed, there are many cases where battles against humans, especially on lower tiers, were actually much easier than battles against AI. Because, well, the actual players were very often weaker than AI when we could abuse them maybe even more way than you can abuse AI.
Yeah,
Foxy?
like most of the time, it's against an AI, you don't really know what to expect. I had like some situations where I tried to bait the AI by moving really close to get them into phalanx, for example, and it just wouldn't do it. Like, I'm like, come on, go into fucking phalanx, and nope, they just wouldn't do it. And you're confused for like a second or two, like why doesn't the AI react at all? And then you try to exploit it, and then they suddenly react, and then you're fucked.
Well, you can learn the AI thinking patterns, but That's not something that a lot of players are going to do. Maybe some of the more extreme that really like to abuse AI for whatever reason. I mostly just went into battle against AI for kind of a relaxation, kind of a break between fighting against humans. To just calm down a little bit between higher stake matches. And yeah, that's like not that big of a deal.